Have you ever felt like the world is a chessboard where everyone else seems 2 moves ahead, and you're left wondering how to protect your next step? People test you, circumstances press against you, and sometimes it feels as if life itself is waiting for you to stumble. In those moments, the temptation is to react, to explain, to prove your worth. Yet the more noise you make, the more power slips from your hands. The Stoics saw this long before us. They understood that wisdom isn't about winning every argument or displaying every achievement. It is about carrying an inner calm so unshakable that no chaos outside can move it. Life will always be unfair. People will always underestimate you. But the question is, how do you stand unbroken in the middle of it? Today we'll walk through 9 Stoic keys that don't just protect you, but give you an advantage in silence, in restraint, in presence. Stay with me, and you may discover that outsmarting others begins not with them, but with yourself. As we step into the first chapter, picture this. You're standing in a crowded room, and suddenly the weight of your own story presses against your chest. Every disappointment, every obstacle, every silent struggle you wish someone else would understand. The urge rises in you to speak, to pour it out, to let the world know how unfair the path has been. But pause here. Ask yourself, does speaking of your burden make it lighter, or does it make the chain rattle louder? Now imagine life not as a smooth river, but as a relentless mountain pass. Each stone, each steep climb, each sudden drop, it's all part of the journey. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who wrote in The Solitude of War, once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The mountain is not your enemy. It is your training ground. The very weight you wish to cast off is the weight that will carve your strength. Here's the hard truth the Stoics faced head-on. Life was never promised to be easy. Small irritations, crushing betrayals, broken plans, these are not exceptions. They are the fabric of existence itself. What matters is not the weave of the cloth, but how you choose to wear it. If you drape yourself in complaint, you will suffocate. If you cut and stitch it into armor, you will endure. Think of the worker handed an impossible project. Day after day he grumbles at his desk, telling anyone who will listen how unfair it is, how heavy, how endless. Yet the task does not move an inch. In fact, it grows heavier with every retelling. Compare him to the one who sits quietly, breaks the work into small pieces, tackles the first piece, then the next. No grand speeches, no declarations, just steady labor. At the end, one man is drained by words, the other is strengthened by deeds. Or picture yourself on a road, locked in traffic, horns blaring, frustration climbing into your chest like smoke in a burning room. You could curse, you could fume, you could replay the injustice to every friend later. But what does that change? The Stoic answer is simple: nothing. Yet, shift your angle, listen to a voice that uplifts, practice your breathing, or let silence teach you patience. Suddenly, the traffic is not a prison, but a pause. You arrive not bitter, but calmer, sharper, more alive. Silence becomes a weapon when you refuse to waste it on complaint. The world does not bend because you speak louder of your pain. It bends when you act, when you adapt, when you stand firm without needing the echo of sympathy to hold you up. The discipline to stay quiet and move forward is rarer than anger, rarer than noise. That is why it carries such weight. So here lies the first key. Do not make your challenges your song. Make them your forge. Let your silence be the anvil, your actions the hammer. When you rise from the fire, the world will see not a victim of circumstance, but a creator of strength. And from this silence, we turn toward the next lesson, discretion and the art of guarding what should never be spoken. Moving into the second chapter, picture this. You're holding something fragile in your hands, a small flame cupped between your palms. If you guard it carefully, it will warm you, light your path, perhaps even guide others one day. But the moment you expose it to careless winds, it flickers, it weakens, and it dies. This flame is your secret world, your thoughts, your dreams, your private wounds, and once revealed too freely, it belongs no longer to you, but to those who may use it as they wish. Now, ask yourself, how many times have you handed that flame to the wrong person? How many times have you watched trust turn into betrayal, watched your own words twisted into weapons? Seneca once warned, "If you wish to keep a secret, keep it to yourself." He understood something timeless. Not everyone who smiles at you carries your best interests in their heart. Some of the deepest cuts come not from strangers, but from those you believed would never wound you. Think of a young artist, excited about a project still raw, still fragile. He rushes to share it, telling everyone of his plans, hoping for encouragement. Instead, he meets doubts, casual ridicule, even envy. The spark dims. The work never reaches the world because it was stolen in its infancy by the careless air of other people's opinions. Now contrast this with the one who keeps quiet, who lets the vision grow in silence, who reveals only when the roots are deep. The difference is survival. Discretion is not coldness, it is protection. Your inner life is a sanctuary, a sacred temple that not all deserve to enter. When you choose your confidants wisely, you give yourself the freedom to be vulnerable without fear of betrayal. When you guard your inner world, you cultivate something even rarer: self-control. In a culture addicted to oversharing and instant validation, restraint becomes a mark of true power. The ability to hold back when the world tempts you to spill everything, that is strength. Consider your own life. Have you ever spoken of your weaknesses too openly, only to have them used against you? Have you shared a hope too soon, only to feel it mocked before it was born? These are the bruises of indiscretion. But the Stoic path does not call you to isolation. It calls you to wisdom. Share with those who have proven loyalty through action, not promises. Guard the rest. In silence, dreams grow stronger. In privacy, healing runs deeper. There is a strange joy in knowing that not everyone knows your story. It is a freedom, a space where your thoughts remain yours alone, untouched, unswayed. When you protect your secrets, you protect your sovereignty. And sovereignty of self, that is where dignity is born. So here is the Stoic key. Do not scatter your treasures into unworthy hands. Keep them close. Let them strengthen you first before the world ever sees them. Remember this: discretion is not deceit. It is discipline. It is power wrapped in silence. And as we close this chapter, let us walk forward into the next truth. How humility, not boasting, can make your actions thunder louder than any words ever could. Advancing to the third chapter, picture this. You walk into a room where stories are traded like currency. One person brags of promotions, another of possessions, another of recognition from strangers online. Voices rise, each trying to outshine the next. And yet, in the corner, there is someone silent. No boasting, no applause sought, just presence. And strangely, that silence speaks louder than all the noise combined. Now imagine your own life. How often have you felt the itch to announce your victories, to make sure the world sees you shining. It feels good for a moment, doesn't it? The likes, the nods, the fleeting praise. But ask yourself, does that praise feed you, or does it leave you hungrier the next day? The Stoics warned us of this hunger. Epictetus put it plainly: don't explain your philosophy, embody it. In other words, let your life show what words can never prove. Think of a gardener. He spends years in silence, tilling soil, pruning, planting, enduring seasons of drought and frost. He does not run to the village shouting of his labor. He waits. Then, one morning, the garden blooms. Flowers stretch to the sky. Fruit bends the branches. The garden speaks, and no proclamation is needed. This is the power of humility, to labor without fanfare, to let the work bear witness. But here lies the trap. In our age of constant display, it is easy to tie your worth to reaction. You share your achievement online, and for a moment the dopamine of approval hits, but it fades, and you chase it again. It's a cycle of emptiness disguised as fulfillment. The Stoics would tell you, the only approval that matters is your own. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not the applause of strangers, not the tally of likes, but the quiet knowing that you lived today with integrity, that you stretched yourself into growth." I once knew a man who built a business from nothing. When success came, he kept his head down. He did not broadcast his gains. Yet, when people encountered him, they felt his strength. They saw his discipline in the way he carried himself, in the care he gave to others, in the consistency of his craft. Years later, his reputation was not of a loud man who chased attention, but of a steady one whose character commanded respect. True success doesn't need a trumpet. It needs roots, and roots grow in silence. If you live for the applause, you'll always be a slave to it. If you live for the work itself, you'll always be free. So the next time you achieve something, resist the urge to announce it. Take the win into your chest. Honor the effort. Then quietly step forward to the next mountain. Let your life, not your lips, prove you. And from this quiet garden of humility, we now turn to another kind of silence, the kind that shields your plans and keeps your next move hidden until it's ready to strike. Entering the fourth chapter, imagine a chessboard lit only by candlelight. Every move is deliberate, every silence loaded with meaning. The master does not announce his next step. He waits, he studies, he moves only when the moment is ripe, leaving his opponent blind in the dark. This is where the Stoics remind us, real strategy lives not in loud declarations, but in the restraint to wait until the move itself speaks. Now ask yourself, how many times have you revealed your plans too soon? You tell the world you're starting something bold, and in that instant, the weight of opinions floods in. Doubt, jealousy, pressure. What once burned bright inside now flickers under the cold wind of expectation. Epictetus offered a razor-sharp reminder. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Words mean nothing until they are anchored in action. Think of the runner training for a marathon. He tells everyone his goal. For a week, he trains with fire. But slowly, he feels the pressure of eyes watching, the burden of proving himself. His energy leaks into performance for others rather than dedication to himself. Compare him to the runner who trains in silence. No announcements, no promises, just miles run alone in the quiet. On the day of the race, the truth is revealed not in talk but in triumph. Keeping your plans close protects you. It guards your focus from the noise of other people's doubts. It shields you from the illusion of early satisfaction, that dangerous trick of the mind that mistakes words for deeds. And it forces you to lean on your own judgment. Self-reliance is not built in applause. It is built in the long silence where no one is watching. I've seen this play out in small ways too. A friend once shared a new business idea too early. Advice poured in, unsolicited, often discouraging. He froze. Another friend, working quietly on a side hustle, spoke of it only after it had grown roots. By then, it was undeniable. The contrast was clear. Silence had given the second man strength, while noise had robbed the first of momentum. Strategic silence is not secrecy, it is clarity. It is saying to yourself, this dream is still tender, and I will protect it until it can stand on its own. And when it does, it will not need your boasting. The results will speak with a force louder than any words you could have offered. So here lies the lesson. Do not scatter your vision into the wind before it is ready. Keep it in the soil of your own discipline until it blooms. True power is not in announcing the move, it is in making it. And from this silence of strategy, we now turn to another battlefield, the whispers of gossip and judgment, and how to rise above the poison of speaking about others. From here, let us enter the 5th chapter, where words can wound deeper than blades. Imagine walking into a room and hearing your name on someone else's lips, not with admiration, but with idle judgment. A careless rumor, a twisted story, a laugh at your expense. It stings. And yet, look closer. Those voices say more about themselves than about you. Gossip is not power. Gossip is decay. And the Stoics knew this truth well. Every moment spent dissecting the lives of others is a moment stolen from building your own. Now picture this. 2 men walk the same road. One spends his journey pointing out the flaws of everyone who passes. He mocks, he whispers, he sneers. The other keeps his eyes on the horizon, his hands on the work he carries, his mind on the path before him. Which one reaches further? Which one wastes his breath? Marcus Aurelius cut through the noise with one line: waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The echo of those words still burns. I remember a workplace where gossip was the daily meal, colleagues tearing each other down, stories twisted for entertainment, productivity drained, trust evaporated. You could feel the heaviness in the air, like smoke in a closed room. Then there was one man who never joined in. He kept to his work. He encouraged others quietly. He offered no fuel to the fire. And slowly, people began to respect him, not because he was loud, but because he was untouched by the poison that infected everyone else. His silence was his shield, his focus, his weapon. The Stoics remind us, energy is life. Every ounce you give to slander is an ounce you steal from your own growth. Gossip is cheap currency. It buys you nothing lasting. But discipline, reflection, self-mastery, those are treasures that compound. When you turn your gaze inward instead of outward, you transform, you sharpen, you rise. Ask yourself, what do you gain by pulling someone else down? A fleeting laugh, a shallow bond. But what do you lose? Integrity, peace, focus. And once those are gone, the cost is far too high. True strength is never in exposing the weakness of others. True strength is in exposing your own potential by living it fully. So the next time you feel the pull to speak of someone else's faults, stop. Breathe. Remember that you are giving away the most precious thing you own, your attention. Reclaim it. Invest it back into yourself. Build the life that speaks so loudly it drowns out every whisper. This is the Stoic path. Refuse to join the chorus of gossip. Refuse to waste your breath on shadows. When you rise above, you create not only peace within, but an atmosphere around you where others feel uplifted. And that is influence worth having. Hold to this. What you say about others is a mirror of you. Let it reflect dignity, not smallness. Let it reflect strength, not spite. And with that, we step into the next key, where even your good deeds, if spoken too loudly, can betray their true worth. At this stage, let us turn to the quietest kind of power, the kind that never announces itself. Imagine a candle burning in a quiet room, steady and unseen, yet giving light that fills the space without asking for recognition. It does not shout of its gift. It does not ask for thanks. Yet, without it, the forest would wither. This is the way of unspoken kindness, acts that flow from you naturally, without demand for recognition, without hunger for applause. Now ask yourself, why do we so often feel the urge to tell the world when we do good? Perhaps you donate, you volunteer, you help a stranger, and almost instantly there's an itch to post it, to mention it, to ensure someone else knows. It feels harmless, maybe even inspiring. But here, the Stoics issue a warning. When you chase praise for goodness, you poison the purity of the act itself. Seneca said it best, "The reward for a good deed is to have done it." That's it. Nothing more is needed. Think of the moments that changed you most. Was it someone making a grand display of generosity, or was it the quiet soul who gave without telling, who extended help in silence and then moved on? Their strength lay in humility. Their presence carried no trumpet, no banner. Yet you remember them because their kindness was real. Genuine compassion never needs to advertise itself. There was once a man in my neighborhood who every winter shoveled not only his own driveway, but also those of the elderly living nearby. He never spoke of it, never knocked on doors asking for gratitude. The snow was simply gone when morning came. Years later, when he moved away, people still spoke of him, not because he bragged, but because his silence made his actions undeniable. This is the essence of Stoic virtue, service without self-display. In today's world, the trap of external validation is everywhere. Likes, comments, hearts, shares. We begin to measure goodness by its audience rather than its intent. But the Stoics would remind us, real virtue is inward. It is born in the decision to act rightly, even if no one is watching, even if no one ever knows. That is the deepest freedom, to do good not because it will be seen, but because it is who you choose to be. The truth is simple yet sharp. The more you speak of your good deeds, the more you drain them of their strength. But the more you let them remain unspoken, the more they shape your soul. Every act of quiet kindness builds unseen muscle in your character, the kind of strength that cannot be taken, cannot be faked. So hold fast to this. Let your goodness flow like that hidden stream, gentle, steady, life-giving. Unnoticed by many, yet indispensable. When you walk away from your own deeds without needing applause, you walk closer to freedom. And from here, we step into another truth, why even your weaknesses, if spoken carelessly, can become weapons in the hands of others, and why the Stoics taught us to guard them like a fortress wall. Entering the 7th chapter, imagine a fortress under siege, its gates wide open, its walls crumbling, the enemy pouring through without resistance. This is what a life looks like when weaknesses are carelessly revealed to the world. unguarded, exposed, and at the mercy of others. Seneca warned us long ago, the person who reveals their weaknesses to the world is like a city without walls. And he was right. Now pause and ask yourself, do you know the difference between a flaw and a weakness? A flaw is a crack you can polish and mend. It is the uneven stone in the path you trip on, only to rise wiser. But a weakness, that is the open door in your fortress. That is the chink in your armor. And when you speak of it too freely, you hand the world a weapon it did not have before. I once worked with a man who confessed to everyone that he was terrible at handling stress. At first, it seemed honest, even brave. But soon, his managers used it against him, piling more work on his desk because they knew he wouldn't refuse, dismissing his struggles as just who he was. His vulnerability became his prison, not because he admitted it to himself. That was good, but because he broadcasted it to those who did not care. The Stoic way is not to deny weakness, but to guard it. True strength is forged in silence. When stress presses you down, you don't need to tell the world you are drowning. You need to build lungs strong enough to breathe underwater. When anger tempts you, you don't need to confess to everyone how easily it overtakes you. You need to train your mind to pause, to master the surge before it owns you. Strength is not in the announcement. It is in the quiet overcoming. Think of a warrior sharpening his sword in the dark. No witnesses, no applause, just discipline. Day after day, stroke after stroke, until the blade gleams with unseen effort. When battle comes, the sword speaks for him. This is what it means to guard your weaknesses, to transform them in silence until they are no longer vulnerabilities, but weapons of resilience. Ask yourself, what do you gain by telling the wrong person about your soft spots? Perhaps pity, perhaps a moment of sympathy. But sympathy fades, and once spoken, you cannot take it back. Better to hold your silence. Better to build yourself up quietly, so when the moment of testing comes, you surprise even yourself with the strength you now carry. The Stoics taught that real power is self-reliance. You do not depend on others to validate your struggle. You depend on your discipline to carry you through it. And when you rise, not because the world lifted you, but because you lifted yourself, you walk with a confidence that no ridicule, no manipulation, no betrayal can touch. So here lies the shield. Guard your weaknesses. Do not hand your enemies the keys to your gates. Work on them in silence until they harden into strength. Remember, true resilience is quiet, unseen, undeniable. And from this shield of silence, we now move to another kind of protection, the secret fire of dreams, and why they too must be guarded until their time has come. Advancing to the 8th chapter, imagine a seed buried deep in the soil. It carries within it the promise of a towering tree, yet if dug up too soon, it withers before its roots can take hold. Your deepest dreams are like that seed, fragile, sacred, alive with potential. And while the world urges you to speak them aloud, to display them, to brand them before they're even born, the Stoics whisper a harder truth. Protect them in silence until they are ready to stand. Now ask yourself, how many dreams have been weakened by premature exposure? You share them too early, and suddenly voices rise around you. Doubt, envy, cynicism disguised as advice. What once burned bright in your chest begins to flicker under the cold wind of outside opinion. Seneca warned us with piercing clarity. The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. In other words, when we focus more on the announcement of a dream than on the work itself, we surrender the present moment where true creation is born. Picture the young artist, eager and restless. She shares her work too soon, seeking validation. A careless remark, a harsh comparison, and suddenly her brush grows heavy, her vision clouded. Now picture another who paints in silence, each stroke hidden from the world, her voice forming in solitude. When she finally unveils her canvas, it carries not just color, but conviction, immune to ridicule because it has been strengthened in the dark. Which artist do you want to be? The Stoics remind us, motivation must come from within. External applause is a fleeting fire. It burns hot, then fades. But the roots you nurture in silence, those unseen foundations of purpose, are the ones that keep you standing when storms arrive. By guarding your dreams, you protect your identity, your vulnerability, and your patience. You give yourself room to fail privately, to learn without the gaze of spectators, to rise without the weight of expectation crushing your steps. Think too of the dreamer who longs to build a non-profit, to serve the forgotten. If he speaks too soon, voices of doubt swarm. It's too ambitious. You'll never raise the funds. Who do you think you are? But if he builds quietly, laying foundation after foundation, one day the doors open and the work speaks for itself. The silence was not weakness, it was strategy. Or the runner training before dawn. He tells no one of his marathon, no posts, no announcements, no daily reports, just miles, sweat, breath in the dark. On the day of the race, he does not need to prove anything. The finish line proves it for him. So here is the challenge. The next time your heart trembles with excitement about a dream, pause. Ask, will speaking this out help me, or will it scatter my focus? Will it anchor me, or make me dependent on others' approval? Remember, guarding your dreams is not secrecy born of shame. It is reverence. It is creating sacred ground where your vision can grow strong before the world ever touches it. Hold this truth. Dreams whispered too loudly die young, but dreams nurtured in silence become unshakable. And from these quiet seeds of vision, we step into the final lesson, the sanctuary of solitude, where the deepest strength is forged in time spent alone. As we step into the 9th and final chapter, imagine yourself walking alone through a forest at dawn. The air is crisp, the world is still, and for the first time in days, you hear something you had forgotten, the quiet rhythm of your own breath. No voices tugging at you, no notifications demanding attention, just you. In that moment, you are not lonely, you are whole. This is the sanctuary of solitude. The modern world tells you to fear such silence, to stay plugged in, to keep sharing, posting, talking, connecting. But the Stoics saw solitude differently. They saw it as wealth, not poverty. Seneca wrote with piercing clarity, "Loneliness is the poverty of self. Solitude is the richness of self." In solitude, you do not run from the world. You return to yourself. You remember what matters. You sharpen the blade of your inner life. Think of Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, surrounded by armies, politics, endless demands. And yet, he carved out moments to sit with his journal, writing words that were not meant for an audience, but for his own soul. That was his solitude, not weakness, not withdrawal. Strength, a fortress no enemy could storm because it existed within. Why keep your solitude sacred? Because it is fragile. Share too much of it, and others may misunderstand. Some will call you antisocial. Some will pity you. Others may even try to intrude on the silence you've built, turning your sanctuary into noise. Protect it. Like a hidden garden where your thoughts can bloom free of judgment, solitude must be guarded if it is to nourish you. I once knew a man who kept a daily ritual of walking by the river at sunrise. He never invited anyone, never posted a picture. That hour was his temple. He returned home calmer, sharper, more alive. People often remarked on his clarity, his balance. They never guessed it came from those silent walks, and he never explained. He didn't need to. Solitude had done its work. In solitude, you learn self-reliance. You stop looking for others to fill your silence, and you discover your own voice. You stop leaning on constant company for comfort, and you find peace in your own presence. The Stoics knew that when you can sit with yourself without fear, you are unbreakable. Because if you are content in your own company, no one can take that peace from you. Ask yourself, when was the last time you chose silence, not as punishment, but as nourishment? When was the last time you let yourself be still long enough to hear your own thoughts before the world drowned them out? Solitude is not exile, it is return. It is where you learn to trust your own compass, to confront your shadows, and to kindle the fire of creativity that only burns in quiet places. So embrace solitude, defend it. Let it become the ground where strength, clarity, and resilience take root. For in the end, you will discover this: solitude is not the absence of others, it is the presence of yourself. And with this final key, the circle closes. You now hold the Stoic tools, not just to endure the world, but to outsmart it, silently, with power that needs no witness. Thank you for staying with me through these 9 Stoic keys to outsmarting everyone. What you have heard is not a collection of clever tactics, but a way of living that slowly shapes you into someone unshakable. The Stoics never promised that life would be easy. They knew there would be setbacks, betrayals, noise, and judgment. Yet they also knew that real power comes when you stop seeking validation from the crowd and begin cultivating strength within yourself. Think of what each lesson truly means. When you refuse to complain about challenges, you transform obstacles into training. When you protect your secrets and your dreams, you shield the fire that keeps you alive. When you let your actions, not your words, prove your worth, you step into a kind of humility that commands respect without asking for it. When you stay silent about your good deeds, your kindness becomes purer. When you guard your weaknesses, you turn them into hidden sources of resilience. And when you embrace solitude, you discover that being alone is not emptiness, but the richest ground for growth. Every one of these keys is an invitation to a different kind of life, a life where your presence carries more weight than your explanations, a life where your inner compass matters more than the shifting winds of opinion, a life where your calm becomes your shield and your silence becomes your power. If these truths resonate with you, let them become more than words. Practice them, live them, share them with those who are ready to grow. Subscribe if you wish to continue walking this path with me. And in the comments, write just 2 words: inner strength. Let it be a reminder that we walk together, even in silence. Your journey does not end here. The next step awaits. Until then, keep practicing, keep rising, and let your quiet strength speak for itself.